Welcome r/Prorevenge. Got everyone paid out, and one of my proudest moments. So, I used to work for a power line clearing tree service. We did lots and lots of hours of chainsawing all tree species underneath and near power line during winter and summer, and herbicide work in spring. It was growing work in northern MN with bugs and winters, especially when you had to walk through feet of snow all day long. Anyways, I was a foreman at 20 years old running 8-man crews, having to do all the training for new hires. I was pretty confident in the work, even clearing the big trees next to 200k voltage lines. It was part of my forestry and wildfire program to be experienced doing these things. The place I worked at had a really high turnover and was run pretty poorly. All their vehicles had over 240k on them, the machines were always breaking down, and you were away from home 5 days a week for $15 an hour. Here's where it gets messed up. We would be forced to show up to our job sites at the start of the week by 7 AM to be ready for the day regardless of where the site was. That could mean getting up at 1 or 2 AM, driving the hour drive to the shop, spend an hour getting beer together, then driving 3 to 4 hours to get to your site by 7. And all of that time was unpaid until we got to the site. This pissed almost everyone off, especially us young guys, because they stuck us the furthest away. After doing some searching, I found some info from the Department of Labor stating that we should start getting paid from the start of our principal duty, or when getting equipment to fulfill our principal duty. With this new information, I got a hold of my general foreman and mentioned what I found out. Of course, like all things there, it was brushed off and never mentioned. After a month of nothing, me and one of my other coworkers decided to get a hold of the CEO of the company, 100 to 300 person company, and mention what we found in the dual information. He listened to what we said and said he'd have to talk to his corporate lawyer to figure it out, since it must be legal not to pay us, because if it was, his lawyer would never allowed it. So fast forward to our next meeting, and as you'd expect, he said he didn't need to pay us out. Me being me, I didn't back down and mentioned I'd have to call the Department of Labor and open a case to get this resolved. He quickly was taken back and said he'd need to have one more conversation with his counsel to see for sure. Upon our next meeting, he came back at us with an envelope. Inside was a contract and a $1,000 check. To not bring this up, my coworker and I were pissed and said this needed to be rectified for the whole company, and that if it wasn't, we'd be forced to make the call. He was taken back, but stuck to his guns. With his choice made, I made the call and began to open a case. The state said that through a loophole, he was in the correct, but by federal Department of Labor standards, he was not. So the case was opened, and the worker said it could take a while for these investigations to be resolved. As we waited for this situation to start, the management very clearly tried pushing me out, making me no longer take company vehicles, and never had me stop at the shop, instead delegating to other coworkers. I quit shortly after as I had another job lined up and forgot all about the situation. Fast forward 6 months and I received a letter in the mail from my old company. I opened it up, and to my shock it was a $800 check. This way as big as it was, because statute of limitations goes back 2 years. I called several other people I knew from the company and asked if they had received money, and they all had, and some of their checks were bigger than mine. So in the end, my own research bested their lawyer, got me paid out, got tons of other people paid out, and changed how they ran the place for everyone else. Best revenge ever, and one of the prouder moments in my life at a very young age. I've made numerous OSHA complaints over the years. In most of the cases I ended up quitting, because the company quickly figured out that it was the guy who always seems more concerned about safety than the safety officer. OSHA has ways of protecting employees from retaliation, but like any bureaucratic government agency, they drag their heels as much as possible, while the company tries to nickel and dime you into quitting. They know that you need documented evidence to make a retaliation claim, so they do whatever they can to make it as hard as possible to document everything, and it gets to the point that it's just not worth it to keep waiting, especially when you're getting offers from much better companies. I hope you made sure the check was 100% cashed before you called the labor board so they couldn't bounce it on you. You're a really good dude for not just taking the money and hanging your coworkers out to dry. If you're into that kind of stuff, you should look into working for the union or being the union rep of your current job site. You sound like you'd be perfect for it. It didn't happen for me, but I worked for the city I grew up in as a lifeguard. The director would pull shady shit all the time. She did it, so her budget numbers looked good. She would have us do our timesheets in pencil, which obviously was to change hours. Anyway, I had since left and found out she was withholding checks for people that didn't show up for a meeting. She pulled that shit when I was an employee too. Unfortunately for her, one lifeguard's father was an employment lawyer and read her the riot act for doing that. Not only that, the lawyer made the city open an investigation into her tactics. Turns out she had been fudging the numbers for years. She had her admin do that. Surprisingly, she was not fired, but stripped of most of her duties. I ran into one of my former coworkers, and he told me how after the fallout, he got a check from the city for a couple $1,000s for hours not reported. An old biz owner I worked for many years ago also ran a crew of vegetation control. This shark-sweeted used car salesman of a continual con artist loved hiring ex-cons and kids too stupid or afraid to talk back to do this work with little training on how not to die, and the work resembled the pay. And low pay means more contracts, so it worked out well for him. When a few friends and I started a competent tech business and ran him out of both his companies accidentally, I considered it a public service for VegCon companies, ex-cons, students, kids, and municipalities everywhere. Duel does not move fast, but they get results. I love stories like this. Kudos to you for sticking to your guns. I really admire that you and your friend didn't cave with the first offer, but actually stepped up to make sure your colleagues were treated fairly too. The world needs more people like you. I got laid off from a job. They skimped on my severance check. I wouldn't have even known, but the first person they laid off had been the HR director who basically wrote the employee manual. She happily helped all ex-employees of that company get everything they were owed. Long story short, screw people over enough and it'll come back to bite you. That depends on two things. Travel to pick up equipment doesn't count. Traveling 3 to 4 hours with said equipment to perform works count as starting your work shift. Traveling from home with said equipment already loaded doesn't count as working shift but personal time. So, if he was traveling from home to work site with equipments already on board, then that personal time and his shift starts at 7 AM. However, he was traveling from home to work to pick up equipments. In California, when you've shown up to pick up work equipments on the work vehicle, you're technically on the clock, which is paid. Insurances are also picky about that. Chances are, they probably was trying to do a loophole, where if you're driving company vehicle with company equipments, you're not covered, because you were not on the clock. So, regardless, if you had to go to work to load up the company vehicle with company equipments, then you have to clock in. It is also in OHSA regulation as well. California just makes it more stricter. What kind of company claims that they don't have to pay for the hours between the shop and job site? And for those that require the employees to take company vehicles home, then the employee should be paid for the hours between his/her house and the job site if they go straight from home to the job site. So, you don't have to be paid from job site to home or vice versa, even with a company vehicle. That was very specifically written out in the duel information. But as soon as you have to get items that are required to do your principal duty, you're essentially on the clock, because you are not free to do things with your own time.